Welcome to Nerdy Psychology, where your mind's not as messy as it seems. We break it down with a little curiosity and make sense of your thoughts and your themes. So be curious, stay kind, keep your mind nerdy.
Let me paint you a picture. Two people start dating. Things are going well, really well, actually. And then one of them goes quiet for a few hours. Oh, maybe they're busy, or maybe their phone died, or maybe they're just living their life. But person A has already written 3 texts and deleted them, checked their read receipts, decided the relationship, well, it's probably over, drafted a whole internal monologue about, well, what they did wrong, and is now stress eating crackers on the couch wondering why love always feels like this. Meanwhile, person B has been on a 3-hour hobby deep dive and genuinely forgot to check their phone and is completely fine. And then when person A says, hey, I kind of felt anxious when I didn't hear from you, person B shuts down, goes flat, says, I don't know what you want from me. And then suddenly they just ask for a lot of space. And now both of them, well, they're miserable, and neither of them understands why. Here's the thing. Neither of them are broken. Neither of them are the villain. What's happening is something that was wired into them long before this relationship ever started. Something that was shaped before they even had words for it. It is called attachment style. And once you understand yours, it will change how you see every relationship in your life. Let's get nerdy. Hi everyone, welcome back to Nerdy Psychology, where we take the fascinating, complicated, sometimes frustrating reality of, well, being a human and make it make sense with a little science and a lot of heart and a whole lot of nerdy energy. I'm Dr. Angel, a licensed mental health practitioner, and I am so glad you're here today because this episode, this one's a big one. We are talking about attachment styles, and I genuinely believe this is some of the most practical, useful psychology you will ever learn. It shows up in your romantic relationships, and your friendships, and your relationship with your coworkers, your kids, and even how you relate to yourself. If you're new here, welcome, welcome, welcome. Hit that subscribe button and drop a hello in the comments. If you've been here, you already know we don't do surface level. We dive in. Let's go. Before we dive into the styles themselves, I want to set something up. Most of us learned about love, well, by watching it, by experiencing it, by receiving it or not receiving it in the ways that we needed when we were completely small and dependent on the people around us. And those early experiences didn't just give us memories, they gave us the blueprint, a set of unconscious rules about whether people can be trusted and whether love is safe and whether connection leads to comfort or pain. That blueprint, that is your attachment style, and it runs quietly in the background of every relationship you have, usually without you even realizing it's there. The good news, and this is important, is that attachment styles they're not a life sentence. And understanding yours is the first step to changing the patterns that aren't working. And that's exactly what we're doing today. Okay, let's do a quick origin story because, I love a good origin story. Attachment theory was developed in the 1960s by a British psychiatrist and psychoanalyst, John Bowlby. Bowlby observed that human infants, like other mammals, are biologically wired to seek proximity to a caregiver when they feel threatened or scared or stressed. He called this attachment behavioral system. It's when a survival mechanism, when the world feels scary, we move towards safety early in life. And safety has a human face. Then, in the late 1970s, psychologist Mary Ainsworth took Bowlby's theory and made it, well, empirical. She designed a study called the strange situation, where she observed how toddlers responded when their caregivers left the room and then came back. What she found was actually remarkable. Some kids were distressed when mom left, but they quickly recovered when she returned, secure. Some kids were distressed when mom left and could not be soothed when she came back, still clingy, still upset, even when the threat was gone, anxious. Some kids barely affected when mom left the room, and when she returned, they avoided her, avoidant. And some kids showed a disorganized, contradictory mix of both, fearful and disorganized. These four patterns, first observed in toddlers in a lab in the 1970s, map almost directly into the way adults behave in relationships today. Let that one sink in for a second. Okay, here we go. 4 attachment styles. And as I describe each one, I want you to be honest with yourself about which one do you recognize. Maybe it's you, or maybe it's someone you love, or maybe it's both. Style 1, secure attachment. So let's start with the gold standard, secure attachment. Securely attached people grew up with caregivers who were consistently responsive, not perfect, but present, tuned in. When they were distressed, someone showed up. When they needed comfort, they got it reliably enough that they learned people can be counted on, and I am worthy of care. And the world is basically okay. As adults, securely attached people, well, they tend to feel comfortable with intimacy without being consumed by it. They communicate their needs directly without excessive fear of rejection. They can tolerate disagreement without catastrophizing. They recover from relational ruptures relatively well. They give their partner space without feeling threatened by it. Research by psychologist Philip Shaver estimates that roughly 50 to 60% of adults have a secure attachment style, which means almost half of us don't. And if you're watching this video, there's a real chance you're in that half, because people with secure attachment generally aren't up at midnight watching videos about why their relationships feel so hard. I say that with full level of compassion, and I am not judging you. I am with you. Style 2, anxious attachment. Anxiously attached people grew up with caregivers who were, well, they were inconsistently responsive, sometimes warm, sometimes absent, sometimes tuned in, sometimes checked out, available one day, preoccupied the next day. And here's what a child's brain, well, it does with inconsistency. It turns up the volume on the attachment signal, because if you're not sure whether the caregiver is going to respond to you, escalate, you get louder, you get more clingy, because more persistent, because inconsistent reinforcement actually increases the behavior. Your brain learned love is unpredictable, so I need to hold on tight and never stop monitoring. Sound familiar? As adults, anxiously attached people tend to crave closeness, but feel like they can never quite get enough of it. They tend to be hyper vigilant to signs of rejection, a delayed text, or a change in tone. They may struggle to self-soothe, often needing reassurance from their partner or the people around them. They may have a fear of abandonment even in stable relationships, and sometimes come across as too needy or too much, which is deeply an unfair characterization of someone whose nervous system learned that love requires constant vigilance. The 3 deleted texts, that's anxious attachment doing its job, the job it learned to do years ago to keep the person safe. Style 3 is avoidant attachment, also called dismissive avoidant. Avoidantly attached people, well, they grew up with caregivers who were emotionally unavailable, dismissive, or uncomfortable with emotional expression. Maybe they were told to toughen up, or maybe vulnerability was met with irritation or withdrawal. Maybe the message was spoken or unspoken, that their emotional needs were just too much and you need to handle yourself. So they learned to handle themselves. They became fiercely self-reliant. They turned the attachment system down, not off. That's biologically impossible, but they muted it. They suppressed it because needing people led to disappointment, and not needing people, that felt safer. And as adults, avoidantly attached people tend to, value independence and self-sufficiently highly, sometimes to an extreme. They may feel uncomfortable with too much closeness or emotional intensity. They may withdraw or shut down when partners need emotional engagement. They may struggle to identify or express their own emotional needs. And they may be perceived as cold or distant when they're actually just defended. And here's what I really want you to hear about avoidant attachment. This is not someone who doesn't feel things. This is someone who was taught that feelings were dangerous. The 3-hour phone silence, that's not indifference. That's a nervous system that learned to survive by turning inward. Style 4, disorganized, fearful, avoidant attachment. This one is the most complex and often the most painful. Disorganized attachment typically develops when the caregiver was both the source of comfort and the source of fear. This is often, though not exclusively, associated with trauma, abuse, neglect, or growing up with a caregiver who was themselves frightened or dysregulated. Your biology says run towards the caregiver when scared, but your lived experience says the caregiver is also what's scary. There's no solution to that equation. So the attachment system, it becomes disorganized, and it oscillates between desperate craving for closeness and then terror of it. And as adults, fearful avoidant people, they tend to deeply want intimacy and deeply fear it at the same time. They push people away and then they panic when they actually leave. They have volatile relationship patterns, hot and cold, in and out. They struggle with trust, even when the other person has been nothing but trustworthy. They often carry unresolved trauma that gets activated in close relationships. If this one resonates, I want to say this clearly and directly. This pattern makes complete, rational sense given what you experienced. And it's workable. Healing is real. This is not who you are forever. Okay, let me give you a little brain science to anchor all of this because, this is nerdy psychology and we don't just describe, we explain. Attachment experiences in early childhood literally shaped the developing brain. The right hemisphere was processing emotional experiences, social cues, and nonverbal communication, and that develops most rapidly in the first 2 years of life. And during this window, caregivers' interactions are essentially programming how the brain learns to regulate emotion. When caregiving is consistent and attuned, the developing brain builds robust neural pathways, like superhighways for self-regulation. It learns, distress can be tolerated and help comes and I can calm down. When caregiving is inconsistent, absent, or frightening, those pathways, they develop differently. The brain's stress response can become either chronically hyperactivated, anxious, or chronically suppressed, avoidant. And those patterns get reinforced over time until, they feel like the personality of that's just who you are. Neuroscientist Dan Siegel, whose work I absolutely love, calls this process interpersonal neurobiology. And that's the idea that our brains are literally shaped by our relationships, not metaphorically, structurally. And here's the hope embedded in that science. If relationships shaped the brain, then new relationships can reshape it. And this is called earned secure attachment. Research shows that people can and do move towards security through therapy, through consistently feeling safe in relationships, through doing exactly the kind of reflective work that we're doing right now. Your history is not your destiny. I want you to hear that. All right, let's do this because we wouldn't have an episode without some tools. So, tool number 1, name your pattern without judgment. That's the attachment audit. Before you can change a pattern, you have to see it clearly. And seeing it clearly requires naming it without shame. So here's your assignment. Think about your closest relationships right now: romantic, friendship, family. When there's conflict or distance in that relationship, what do you typically do? Do you pursue? Do you reach out more? Do you seek reassurance? Do you escalate emotionally? Do you need to resolve it right now? Anxious tendency. Do you withdraw, go quiet, need space, feel flooded and just want to shut down, preferring to just table it? Avoidant tendency. Do you oscillate, frantically pursue and then suddenly pull back, feel desperate for closeness and then terrified of it simultaneously? That's fearful-avoidant tendency. Or do you stay relatively regulated and able to communicate and repair without catastrophizing? And that would be secure functioning. Write it down, name it out loud, not as a verdict, as information. Because when you can name what's happening in the moment, you can create a pause between the trigger and the response. And in that pause is where change lives. Researchers call this metacognitive awareness, and that's the ability to think about your own thinking. It's one of the most powerful predictors of movement towards secure attachment. Tool 2, learn your triggers and write a new script. Every attachment style has predictable triggers, the specific relational moments that activate that old wiring. For anxious attachment, silence or ambiguity or unavailability or perceived withdrawal. For avoidant attachment, demands for closeness or emotional intensity or perceived engulfment. For disorganized, intimacy itself. Conflict, vulnerability, being truly seen. The tool: map your top 2 or 3 relational triggers. Then, and this is the important part, write a new interpretive script for each one. I'll give you an example. An old script might be, they haven't responded, they're pulling away, I must have done something wrong, this whole relationship is ending. But a new script could be, well, they haven't responded yet, and that's making me feel anxious, but it doesn't mean something changed. And I can tolerate discomfort. I don't need to act on this feeling right now. And that's not toxic positivity. That's cognitive reappraisal. It's a well-researched emotional regulation strategy that literally changes how the brain processes threat. You're not pretending the feeling isn't there. You're offering your nervous system a different interpretation to work with. And it feels clunky at first, but do it anyway, because repetition builds new neural pathways. And that's not a metaphor. Again, that's biology. Tool 3, practice secure base behaviors with yourself first. Okay, Here's the thing a lot of people miss about attachment work. You don't have to wait for the perfect, secure partner to start building security. You can start being a secure base for yourself. Secure attachment is fundamentally about two things: safe haven, I can come to you when I'm distressed, and secure base, I can go out and engage with the world knowing you've got me. So, what does this look like with yourself? When you're distressed, do you shame yourself, abandon yourself, dismiss your own feelings the way your avoidant caregiver did? Or escalate and catastrophize the way that your anxious system learned to do? The practice: when you notice distress, try responding to yourself the way a securely attuned caregiver would respond to a scared child. Acknowledge what you're feeling. I notice I'm feeling really anxious right now. Validate it. It makes sense. I feel this way, well, given my history. Offer comfort. I can handle this. This feeling will pass. I'm safe right now. And then stay with yourself through it rather than escalating it or shutting it down. Psychologist Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows this kind of internal attuned response literally regulates the nervous system the same way an attuned caregiver does for the child. You can help yourself and it's not too late. That's not a feel-good platitude. That's documented psychological science. Let me tell you about a couple, and I'll call them Jordan and Sam. Jordan was anxiously attached. Every time Sam went quiet, Jordan's nervous system went into high alert, more texts, more reassurance seeking, a mounting sense of dread that felt completely real and completely disproportionate. And Jordan knew it was disproportionate, which made it even worse. Sam was avoidantly attached, and every time Jordan needed more connection, Sam felt flooded, retreated, went logical, gave less, not more, which of course escalated Jordan further. They were stuck in what researchers call this anxious-avoidant trap, one of the most common and most painful relational dynamics. The pursuer pursues and the distancer distances. Both feel misunderstood and both feel incredibly alone. When they started understanding their own attachment style, not as flaws, but as learned strategies, things started to shift. Jordan started recognizing the anxiety spiral, before acting on it. He sat with discomfort, communicated needs directly instead of urgently, said things like, I've been feeling disconnected from you. Can we have some time together tonight? Not, why haven't you texted me back? Sam started recognizing the urge to withdraw as defense, and he practiced staying present even when it felt uncomfortable. Learned that Jordan's needs for closeness wasn't accusation, it was attachment signal, and responding to it actually created the space Sam wanted because Jordan's system could finally settle. They didn't become different people. They became more conscious versions of who they already were. And that's the work. That's the gift. That's what understanding your attachment style can do. Okay, I want to know, which attachment style did you recognize in yourself or someone you love? Did something in this episode land differently than maybe you expected? Did it give you language for something you've been feeling for a long time? Drop it in the comments. Seriously, this is one of those topics where the conversation in the comments becomes its own resource. And I want to hear from you. And if you want to go deeper in your relational patterns, your identity, where you've been, and where you want to go, I want to tell you about something. My workbook, Your Next Chapter. Friends, you knew this was coming, and I'm not even a little bit sorry about it. If today's episode stirred something in you, if you're sitting here thinking, okay, but what do I actually do with all of this? I made something for you. It's called Your Next Chapter, and it's a guided workbook designed to help you get genuinely specific, honestly clear of who you are, what you want, and what patterns have been quietly running your show. It covers identity and values and relational patterns, the whole thing. Not a surface level fill in the blank situation. It's real, it's structured, is therapeutic quality self-reflection work that you can do at your own pace in your own space. People tell me it's the thing that kind of finally made working on themselves feel manageable, not overwhelming, not clinical, just honest. The link is in the description below. Go check it out if you're interested. Before you go, if you're not subscribed yet, well, what are you doing? What's happening? I invite you to subscribe, like this video, share it with someone whose text you've been absolutely overanalyzing. You know who they are. Send it to them. You're welcome. They're welcome. This is a gift. And until next time, stay curious, be kind, and keep your mind nerdy. That's a wrap. See you next week.